Today, we bring you another moment of mounting tension within the progressive spectrum. Self-proclaimed political commentator Fahima Mohammed made headlines after a highly charged exchange unfolded live on air, triggered by remarks from Reform Party MP Sarah Pin during the previous day's Prime Minister's Questions, PMQs. Pin suggested that the UK should consider implementing a ban on the burqa, referencing several European nations as examples. As is often the case in debates of this nature, the backlash was swift and intense. But before we turn to Fahima's impassioned reaction, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin by revisiting Sarah Pin's exact words in the House of Commons. During her intervention, Pin directly asked the Prime Minister whether, in his effort to strengthen strategic ties with European partners, he would be willing to follow the lead of countries like France, Denmark, and Belgium in legislating a public safety-driven ban on the burqa. The Prime Minister responded politely but firmly dismissed the suggestion. He used the opportunity to criticize Reform UK's tax policy, describing it as poorly thought out and reminiscent of the troubled tenure of Liz Truss. He also pointed out that Pin herself had been a member of the Conservative Party during that period. Commentators then weighed in on the session. One analyst remarked that, while Pin's question was certainly provocative, it was not entirely out of place. He went on to criticize Keir Starmer for failing to clearly address any of the questions posed, calling it his weakest performance in a PMQs session to date. Against that backdrop came the most heated moment of the broadcast, Fahima Mohammed's reaction. Asked why she was firmly opposed to any form of burqa ban in the UK, she responded passionately. She pointed to a striking contradiction: how, in countries like Iran, women fear being forced to cover up, yet in Britain, women who choose to do so are stigmatized and treated as potential threats. Mohammed expressed disappointment that Sarah Pin, in her debut speech as an MP, had chosen to focus on a proposal that, in her view, aligns with the agendas of ultranationalist parties across Europe. She argued that Pin could have used the platform to address more pressing issues such as domestic violence or the mental health crisis in women's prisons. One of the hosts countered by noting that a wide range of democratic European countries have enacted burqa restrictions, citing France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Austria, and Switzerland, among others. Fahima responded that, according to her research, the driving forces behind those bans came largely from non-secular and ideologically extreme political factions, naming figures like Geert Wilders as examples. She went on to argue that although Reform UK publicly distances itself from extremist ideologies, it is nevertheless echoing rhetoric and policy proposals that have historically originated from far-right movements in Europe. In her view, Reform's push to frame the burqa ban as a matter of public safety masks a broader narrative of cultural and religious exclusion. While the party denies any xenophobic intent, Mohammed stressed that their proposals align with political agendas previously championed by openly Islamophobic or ultranationalist leaders in other European democracies, such as Geert Wilders in the Netherlands or Marine Le Pen in France. According to Fahima, this approach is fundamentally incompatible with the British legal framework, where freedom of religion is a protected right under both the Human Rights Act of 1998 and the Equality Act of 2010. She pointed out that, unlike many countries that have implemented similar bans, the United Kingdom is not a strictly secular state. In fact, she emphasized that the Church of England still holds an institutional role, including the presence of bishops with voting rights in the House of Lords. Therefore, she questioned how it can be justified that a woman wearing a niqab, as an expression of personal religious practice, is treated as a threat or symbol of radicalism, even when doing something as ordinary as shopping in a supermarket. Fahima argued that religious garments such as the burqa or niqab have been consistently misunderstood by the media and by certain political circles, who tend to associate them automatically with extremism. In her view, this perpetuates harmful stereotypes and fuels a narrative of constant suspicion toward Muslim women, who already face numerous barriers in everyday life, including access to education, employment, and civic participation. She reaffirmed that wearing a veil does not constitute an objective threat in any way and insisted that any serious discussion about security should be grounded in evidence, not religious symbolism. In this context, she underscored that British law clearly and explicitly protects both freedom of religion and freedom of expression, two fundamental pillars of the UK's constitutional order. Attempting to restrict these freedoms based on weak or unfounded arguments, she warned, is not only unjust but could also be legally questionable. While she was strongly critical of Sarapin's remarks, Fahima acknowledged that, in a parliamentary democracy, every elected representative has the right to pose questions, even controversial ones. However, she expressed concern over the implications of certain statements, particularly when they come from public or judicial figures, such as Pin, who also serves as a part-time magistrate. According to Fahima, some of the comments that have emerged could be interpreted as signs of institutional bias or prejudice, which would cast doubt on the impartiality expected from the judiciary and risk breaching principles enshrined in the Equality Act. If a magistrate publicly states that she would not listen to a woman wearing a burqa in court, Fahima added, that constitutes a troubling indicator of structural discrimination. The segment concluded with the presenter describing Fahima's reaction as a live meltdown, a phrase meant to highlight the emotional intensity of her intervention. While he acknowledged her passion and her commitment to civil liberties, he also accused her of lacking legal precision and of steering the conversation into overly emotional territory. In his view, Sarapin's original question, despite its ideological undertones, opened a legitimate space for debate on issues of public safety and social cohesion, a discussion which, he argued, should not be dismissed outright for the sake of political correctness. What do you think about what we discussed in today's video? We invite you to share your perspective in the comments. And if you haven't already, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to keep exploring key topics in the United Kingdom. See you next time.